So imagine achieving like your absolute wildest dreams. You conquer the globe. You break historical records that only a handful of humans have ever touched. And you basically have the entire world at your fingertips.
Right.
And you do all of this, by the way, before you're even legally allowed to vote. But then at the absolute peak of your momentum, you just intentionally slam on the brakes, walk away from the arena, and disappear.
It completely defies the standard gravity of the entertainment industry. We're sort of conditioned to relentlessly climb the ladder, and if you manage to actually reach the top, you certainly don't just step off the edge.
Yeah, no, you build a fortress, you lock the gates, and defend the castle.
Exactly.
But today's deep dive is throwing that entire playbook out the window. We are exploring the meteoric rise, the intensely scrutinized personal life, and the sudden, shocking burnout of pop superstar Shawn Mendes.
Which is such a fascinating topic.
It really is. Rather than just walking through a standard biography, we really want to figure out the mechanics of this collapse. We're unpacking what happens when a teenage prodigy's entire identity gets permanently fused to the stage, and the drastic measures required to, actually reclaim your own mind.
It's a fascinating and honestly somewhat terrifying psychological case study. I mean, we tend to look at child stars or teenage prodigies through this lens of envy or just pure entertainment.
Right, like they hit the lottery.
Exactly. But we rarely stop to examine the structural integrity of the life they are forced to build in real time under a microscope, while their brains are literally still developing.
Yeah, that context is everything. So let's get into the mechanics of that rise, because the speed of it is just crucial to understanding the later collapse.
Absolutely.
We are talking about a kid born in 1998 in Pickering, Ontario. A regular teenager who, at age 15, starts posting these little 6-second videos of himself singing and playing an acoustic guitar on an app called Vine.
Right, and for anyone listening who might not remember the digital landscape of the early 2010s, Vine was basically the chaotic, rapid-fire grandfather of TikTok.
Oh, totally.
The currency of Vine was immediate, punchy entertainment. But the standout factor here is the sheer lack of machinery behind him. Mm-hmm. Shawn didn't have a production team.
Right, no stylists.
No stylist curating some edgy streetwear look, no massive PR firm seeding his videos to blogs. It was literally just a teenager in his bedroom with a guitar and this raw, undeniable vocal talent.
And the internet just noticed instantly. He built this massive, dedicated following just 6 seconds at a time. And it really wasn't long before Island Records saw the sheer volume of that engagement and rapidly signed him.
That's the inflection point.
Yeah, this is the moment the rocket ship leaves the atmosphere. In 2015, his debut album, Handwritten, hits #1 on the Billboard 200. And just for context, that made him one of only 5 artists in the entire history of the chart to achieve a #1 album before turning 18.
I want to just pause on that metric for a second because it reveals a lot about his early fan base. The Billboard 200 tracks entire albums, right?
Right.
So that means people weren't just passively streaming a catchy 30-second hook they heard online. They were actually spending money and time buying into Shawn Mendes as a complete, multi-dimensional artist.
Okay, I see that distinction. Though, I mean, to be fair, the singles were completely inescapable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Stitches hit #1 in the UK and went top 10 in the US. The industry fully embraced him. That same year, he opens for Taylor Swift on her colossal 1989 world tour.
Which is massive.
It is. To get that opening slot is essentially being anointed by pop royalty.
Yeah.
You are playing to stadiums of tens of thousands of screaming fans every single night.
And that momentum, it just didn't stall.
Not at all. In 2016, his follow-up album, Illuminate, hits #1 again. We get huge hits like Treat You Better and There's Nothing Holding Me Back. By 2017, he is headlining Madison Square Garden. Yeah, and by his 2018 self-titled album, he officially becomes the 3rd youngest solo artist ever to have 3 consecutive #1 albums. He gets a Grammy nomination for In My Blood. Time magazine names him to their 100 most influential people list. It's just a flawless upward trajectory.
And paper, yes, completely flawless.
But hold on, I have to push back a little on this narrative. When you look at that timeline, a Canadian teen discovered online immediately vaulted into massive pop success. Wasn't the industry just grooming him to be the next Justin Bieber? Like just a carbon copy?
I mean, it's a completely logical assumption. And frankly, finding the next Bieber was the industry's default, somewhat desperate playbook at the time.
But Shawn actually survived the churn precisely because he wasn't a Bieber clone.
I'm not sure I see the difference, honestly. They were both Canadian teen idols playing acoustic guitars. Okay, think about the peers from that exact era. Look at an artist like Austin Mahone.
Oh, right.
The industry trying to mold Mahone into that highly choreographed R&B leaning pop star archetype that Bieber occupied, and the public kind of rejected it. It felt manufactured.
Yeah, it didn't stick.
Exactly. Shawn, however, cultivated this highly authentic, almost folky acoustic pop aura. I mean, he always had the guitar physically strapped to him.
That's true. He always had the guitar.
He was positioned as a serious singer-songwriter who just happened to be churning out massive pop hits, rather than a manufactured idol reliant on backing dancers and heavy synths. That distinct, grounded identity really insulated him. It made him feel like a musician, not just a passing trend.
Okay, that makes sense. He had this unique armor musically, but his personal life definitely didn't have that same protection, and that became a global spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
This added a massive, inescapable layer of pressure. The public fairy tale really starts with Camila Cabello.
And this relationship is basically the absolute epicenter of the ecosystem he was living in during his late teens and early 20s.
It started innocently enough. I mean, they were friends. They collaborated in 2015 on the track I Know What You Did last summer, back when Camila was still in Fifth Harmony.
Right.
But by 2019, that friendship erupted into this intensely public romance, timed perfectly with the release of their global smash hit, Señorita. Now, earlier we talked about the Billboard 200, but Señorita hit #1 on the Hot 100. For anyone who isn't a chart nerd, what's the actual difference?
It's a really important distinction. While the Billboard 200 measures album consumption like the dedication of a core fan base, the Hot 100 measures the popularity of a specific song across streaming, radio play, and sales.
Okay.
So it measures absolute cultural ubiquity. A Hot 100 #1 means you literally cannot go to a grocery store, a gym, or turn on a car radio without hearing that song.
So their relationship was literally the soundtrack of the year, and the paparazzi photos of them in Miami essentially confirmed to the world that they were a couple. It was a complete media frenzy.
It really was.
But there is a specific quiet detail from this era that I found incredibly profound. During the pandemic, Shawn moved in with Camila and her family in Miami. Shawn later noted that this period was deeply impactful for him because it was the very first time he had a real home and a normal daily routine.
We really need to flag that detail as vital foreshadowing. Think about what we just discussed regarding his meteoric rise.
Right.
From the age of 15, he had been living on tour buses, in sterile hotel rooms, in green rooms, and recording studios. His baseline for reality was just constant dizzying motion.
Wow, yeah.
So experiencing a static home, lifelike, waking up in the same bed, having coffee in a real kitchen, doing laundry, that was a completely novel concept for him in his early 20s.
Honestly, for you listening right now, just pause and think about that. Think about your own teenage years. The messy process of figuring out who you are in the safety of your bedroom. He didn't have a bedroom. He had a tour bus.
Exactly. It highlights a severe developmental gap. It shows us that his foundation, outside of being Shawn Mendes, the pop star, was virtually non-existent.
And because of that gap, his relationship became his entire anchor to reality, which might explain why the dynamic was so intensely public and raw. Do you remember that bizarrely intimate Valentine's Day photo he posted where he was literally kissing her foot?
I do, yeah.
The internet collectively lost its mind. Looking back, it just shows how completely unfiltered and intertwined their lives were. But, you know, the fairy tale didn't last. In November of 2021, they announced their breakup.
Right.
And instead of just listing off the dates of who dated who next, we really need to talk about what actually happened here. Because the transition from a highly publicized romance to a highly publicized breakup is a very jarring psychological shift.
Especially in the modern ecosystem of pop music, it's brutal.
Right, and it got incredibly messy. There were paparazzi photos of Shawn at dinners with pop star Sabrina Carpenter. Then there were doomed reunion attempts with Camila at Coachella.
Yeah, that Coachella kiss.
Exactly. But the fascinating part isn't really the gossip itself, it's how the fans weaponized it. In August 2024, Sabrina Carpenter releases her massive album, Short and Sweet, featuring tracks like Coincidence and Taste.
Oh, the music video for Taste.
Yes. In that video, she casts actress Jenna Ortega, who fans immediately speculated was chosen specifically to represent Camila in this whole visual narrative about a guy going back to his ex.
Right.
And then Camila responds with a TikTok singing her own unreleased lyrics, the song June Gloom, basically questioning why he's looking across town at her if his new girl is so great.
I mean, pop music has always relied on the personal lives of its creators for fuel. Think of Fleetwood Mac.
Sure.
But in the social media age, the fans are no longer just passive listeners. They become active detectives, producers, and participants in the drama.
It's not just living in a glass house. It's more like being trapped in a reality show where the audience is constantly rewriting the script, analyzing your facial expressions, and demanding you respond to the plot twists they've invented.
That's a much more accurate analogy. It's mass surveillance masked as fandom. The lack of privacy fundamentally warps how a person processes grief and closure.
Yeah, how could it not?
Exactly. When millions of people are analyzing your heartbreak, you don't actually get to heal, you just get to perform the healing.
Which brings us to a really crucial point. In December 2024, Shawn finally breaks his silence on this whole love triangle. But he doesn't do it via a sterile PR statement or like an Instagram Notes app screenshot.
No.
He does it on John Mayer's show.
And that choice of venue is incredibly deliberate.
Why? What makes it so different?
Because John Mayer represents a safe harbor for him. It's a musician-to-musician conversation. It completely bypasses the gotcha journalism of a traditional celebrity interview and frames the whole discussion around the human experience of songwriting.
And what he said there was incredibly vulnerable. He admitted he told the person he was dating that he had unresolved feelings for his ex and that he basically had to go see her.
Right.
But his takeaway was what struck me. He said, you simply can't go through life without getting hurt or without hurting someone else.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to maintain the flawless pop prince image anymore. He just accepted the messy reality of being a flawed human trying to figure out his heart.
But we have to recognize that this exhausting pop culture drama was merely a symptom of a much larger internal structural collapse.
Absolutely.
While the machinery was obsessing over Coachella photos and music videos, Shawn was actively experiencing a profound identity crisis.
Which brings us to the breaking point. The moment the whole world basically stopped and just went, wait, what is happening? In July 2022, Shawn is out on his highly anticipated Wonderworld tour.
Right.
This is a massive global stadium and arena tour. He plays exactly 7 shows. Just 7. And then he shocks the entire music industry by pulling the plug and canceling the remaining 70-plus dates worldwide.
I honestly don't think the average person grasps the sheer gravity of canceling a 70-date world tour.
Break down the mechanics of that for us, because it's not like calling in sick to your office job.
Not at all. A world tour of that scale is a massive, multi-million-dollar corporate enterprise. You have contracts with international promoters.
Right.
You have venue deposits, complex logistics, freight shipping for massive stage designs. But more importantly, you have hundreds of crew members, lighting riggers, sound engineers, caterers, truck drivers, whose entire yearly income relies on those dates happening.
That is a lot of pressure.
The financial penalties and insurance claims for canceling without a physical injury are astronomical. The pressure from management, labels, and promoters to just push through it is immense. To actively stop that machine requires hitting an absolute impenetrable psychological wall.
And that's exactly what it was. He hit a wall of severe burnout. The raw truth came out later. He realized that ever since he was a 15-year-old kid on Vine, his entire existence was confined to tours, stages, and studios.
Yeah.
He had absolutely no parallel life. He had no real friends outside the music industry. He didn't even have a second home to retreat to.
And this circles right back to that Miami pandemic detail we talked about.
Exactly. Because the stage wasn't just his job. The stage was his entire identity.
Right. In clinical and developmental psychology, there's a concept known as identity foreclosure. It happens when a young person commits to an identity, often one pushed onto them by parents or circumstances, without ever getting the chance to explore other options or figure out who they actually are.
Wow, identity foreclosure.
Yeah. Shawn committed to the identity of global pop star at 15.
It's like building a massive, glittering skyscraper, but resting the entire thousands of tons of steel on a single concrete pillar.
Exactly.
You can build it as high as you want, and it looks spectacular from the outside, but the moment that one pillar cracks, the entire structure comes down.
That is the exact psychological danger of childhood fame. Adolescence is when you're supposed to try on different identities, make mistakes in private, develop hobbies, and just figure out your core values.
Yeah, figure out who you are.
Right. When your identity is entirely tied to your creative output and its public consumption, you literally never develop a private self. So when the anxiety performing became too overwhelming, he had absolutely nothing to fall back on. He had no other version of himself to step into.
He confessed that he didn't know who he was or what to do with himself. For anyone listening, imagine trying to log off from a demanding 9-to-5 job but your job is literally being you.
That's terrifying.
You can't take the uniform off. Canceling that tour was described as the hardest decision of his life, but from a psychological standpoint, it was a necessary survival mechanism.
If he hadn't stopped, the consequences could have been far more devastating than just angry promoters and a canceled tour. He was quite literally saving his own life.
He had to stop the noise, and that meant stepping completely out of the spotlight. For nearly 2 years, Shawn Mendes just disappeared.
Which is huge.
Yeah, in the modern attention economy, where relevance is basically your only currency, 2 years feels like a decade.
It requires immense discipline to stay away. The industry constantly whispers that if you leave, you will be forgotten.
But he used that time to rebuild the foundation of that skyscraper. He underwent intensive therapy. He spent quiet time with his family in Canada. He finally learned how to set personal boundaries to protect his mental health.
Right.
He had to figure out how to exist outside of the applause. And that reflection eventually led to the comeback.
But a very different kind of comeback.
Exactly. In November 2024, he returns with a brand new album simply titled Shawn. And it is drastically different from the stadium anthems he is known for.
Very different.
It's folk rock. It's acoustic. It is completely stripped of all the commercial pop noise that defined his 2016 to 2018 peak.
The aesthetic choice of acoustic folk rock is fascinating here. It isn't just a musical pivot. It's a form of defensive architecture.
Wait, what do you mean by defensive architecture?
Well, a massive pop album requires massive pop machinery, requires exhausting choreography, massive stage productions, relentless radio promotion, and keeping up this flawless high-energy facade. Right.
An acoustic, self-produced folk album requires significantly less machinery. It allows him to just be a musician sitting on a stool. He stripped away the very elements that made him a global superstar in order to protect his sanity.
He wrote and produced the entire thing himself, calling it the most honest work of his life. And he's actually taking it on the road in 2025.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's embarking on the On the Road Again tour, which celebrates 10 years since his debut album, Handwritten. It kicks off in Europe in August and wraps up at the Hollywood Bowl in October.
That's great.
But he returned without the deafening hype and the sheer overwhelming pressure of his peak era.
What we are witnessing is a fundamental shift in his definition of success.
I was actually going to ask about that. Is the Shawn Mendes we see today even the same artist we saw in 2016? Or did he have to let that version of himself die in order to survive?
I think he had to let the illusion of that artist die.
Okay.
The 2016 version of Shawn Mendes was built for scale. It was engineered for maximum reach, maximum chart dominance, and maximum palatability.
Today, success is no longer defined by Billboard numbers, streaming records, or maintaining a flawless public romance. Success is now defined by personal sustainability.
Yeah.
Can he make music and tour without destroying his mental health? That is literally the only metric that matters now.
He traded peak commercial dominance for authenticity and a healthy mind. When you look at the incredible arc of this story, it really is staggering. We watched a 15-year-old kid on Vine dominate the globe by the time he was 18.
Yeah.
We watched him navigate intensely public love triangles that felt like they were playing out in a modern-day panopticon.
Right.
We watched him survive a total identity collapse that forced him to halt a massive multi-million-dollar world tour.
It's a lot for one person.
It is. And now we're watching him return as a grounded, self-aware artist who refuses to play the game by the old, destructive rules.
It's a powerful reminder that the infrastructure of fame is incredibly fragile, especially when it's built on the shoulders of an adolescent. The transition he has made is exceedingly rare. Historically, many artists just do not survive the collapse of that single pillar.
Which brings me to a final thought for you listening today. When an artist, or honestly, when anyone in any high-pressure career chooses their mental health over the absolute peak of their career trajectory, society so often views it as a step back.
Right, like a failure.
Exactly. We see the canceled tour or the quiet acoustic album and think, oh, what a shame they're losing momentum. But what if stepping off the pedestal is actually the ultimate form of success?
That's a great question.
Take a look at your own life, your own ambitions, your own day-to-day grind. Are you building your entire identity on just one single pillar? Maybe it's your job title, maybe it's a specific relationship or a financial goal. And if that one pillar cracked tomorrow, who would you be? Keep questioning, keep digging deeper, and make sure you're building a foundation that can actually hold you up when the applause finally fades.